Hello, everyone, and welcome to season 6 of the MRX Lab, the show from FlexMR, where this year we're on a mission to uncover the value created by the brilliant people in our industry and how they bring that value into their organisations. Today, I'm really lucky to be joined by Kira Newton, Head of Customer Experience Research and Insight at British Gas Services. Welcome, Kira.
Thank you, Mike. Good to be here.
So, Kira, I always like to kick off these episodes by handing it over to you and let you introduce yourself to the audience. How did you get into Insights and what's your journey look like so far?
Okay, sure. Yeah, so as you said, I head up customer experience research and insight for the British Gas Services side of the business. So that's like our engineers that go into homes to install and fix boilers, mainly gas boilers. And yeah, I've been in this role in the CX and insight role for about 6 or 7 years now. I've actually worked at Centrica, so Centrica is the parent company for British Gas. I've actually been with Centrica for about 20 years. I started straight out of uni in desktop support, and then I went into information security for quite a while. Then I ended up in a data role. And I really knew at that point that I wanted to do a role that was much closer to customers. That was what I really was interested in. I had a passion for that. And so, I expressed this amongst sort of my leadership at the time, and actually was given a great opportunity to do a role rotation into the insight team, which obviously I jumped at the opportunity for. And basically that's how I ended up here. So I'm really lucky in that I didn't have to do sort of, research client side or otherwise to get into the role. But what I did have was a really strong foundation in the data and a good understanding of the business. And with a really good team around me, I was able to sort of thrive in that position. And as I say, now head up CX for all of services. So that's my journey. Possibly
I guess
not.
I guess it gives you a different viewpoint on the customer as well, not coming straight from research. Like, I think it often gives you like a not a better perspective, but just a different one. What was it that got you passionate about the customer, and what made you want to go into that?
So when you're in information security, you're trying to protect customer data ultimately, but also other data, intellectual property, employee data, etc. But it really got me that we're doing all this work and it's kind of invisible to customers. And how could we really make it important to them? And how can we be much more focused on why the security of customers' information is so important? And so it was really that kind of path. We used to work quite closely with the data team that was in the insight function, just to make sure that all the controls were there. And through that relationship, the things they talked about really piqued my interest. And so through building a really strong relationship with that stakeholder, I was then, invited to take up a role in that team. And then again, it was really about those data feeds that enable the voice of the customer program, the data that really enables the analytics team to develop good insights. It was just like a real interest in all of that and wanting to know more about customers, wanting to know what that insight is telling us. That got me interested in the role and seeking more information. And I think we're going to come on to it as well about how insight is shared and how we influence and communicate it. Well, I was, I attended some of those sessions that the team had done in its previous guise. So again, that got me really interested. And also, just working at Centrica British Gas, huge customer base, and we are very fortunate. So a lot of talk about customers, what we do for customers, etc. And again, I just wanted to be closer to that.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue into the sort of next question about focusing on some of your work at British Gas Services. Like you said, one of your ongoing priorities at the moment has been socialising insights and, in a more general theme, engaging stakeholders with your research. So before we get into the details of how you're doing that, let's just start by why that's been a priority for you at the moment.
Well, it's always been a priority, just like the reasons I wanted to come into it, get people close to the customers, why it's important. you know, what their needs are, etc. But yeah, we've definitely come on a journey where there was possibly less understanding of customers, and we wanted to be that voice of the customer and educate anybody, not just those that are developing propositions, not just those working on pricing, not just those working on customer strategies and marketing, but anybody, you know, educate them on what's important to customers and what customers tell us. So that's always been on our agenda. And we do have a team vision, which is to be the customer, to be the voice of the customer using high quality research, analytics and insight. And so, yeah, it's always to drive that that level of understanding. But what it does help us do is, if we do understand the customer needs, the expectations, we can build the right products and services for them. We can give them the right level of support they need. We can offer them the channels that they want to engage with. We can, you know, be present for the needs that they have in their life. We can stand out amongst competitors and amongst other organisations, you know. So it's important to the business as well. And we partner with our, you know, the product teams, if you like. So we're constantly in their ear telling them, you know, what customers need, what they want, what they tell us, what their sentiments are towards the existing service, existing experiences. But also, when those teams are developing something new, we can quickly test that. We can tell them, you know, what it is, how they need to pitch it, what the level of appeal will be, etc. So it's a constant relationship, constant partnership.
And that, how important for you as a team as well, being in customer experience, has that been to get your research across the different stakeholders? You know, does that provide a benefit for you as a team? You know, morale or efficiency, etc.
Yeah, so we do, as I say, we have business partnering, and that would be with product leads. So that would be, as an example, our protection portfolio is one of them. So it's our core product where we have home care, so boiler cover, boiler repair cover, etc. But also there's the boiler installs or heating installations department, and also our contact centre and our field, so our fleet of engineers. So that level of ongoing, like, you know, conversations, communication with them is really like motivating for our team. They can actually directly see the action that's been taken off the back of insight, you know, and they will come to us for advice. They will, you know, ask us to do something explorative, or even just like, you know, quick sense checks on items. Okay, what would happen if we did this? What's the right price point here? Or what is the right key messaging here? What's the appeal of this? Would customers prefer this over this? If we did this, how quickly would customers expect it? And so on. You know, what level of support would they need? You know, all those different things, and we can see a real change. But you know, on top of that, we're constantly monitoring performance with them. So we use MPS in our organisation. So we'll share with each of those their specific, you know, MPS performance. So whether that's for contact centre, the voice surveys, or whether it's field, the visit surveys. And we're constantly giving them that feed. And the business is always striving to do better. So they'll come to us and say, how can we do better? You know, how can we reach this target? Or how can we improve or maintain our performance here, our scores here? How can we strive to do better? What would it take to improve these? So that's always really rewarding as well. And recently, which is kind of hot off the press, you know, the managing director for British Gas Services and Solutions has asked us to go to their team meeting to talk about the whole of our MPS landscape, so that they can create a real stretch target and understand what is needed to get to that. So that feels like a really good opportunity, which obviously we're happy to do.
Yeah. And I think, you know, it's always good to know the foundations of why, you know, that's important for you as a business, but also as a team, to be an ongoing priority. But I know a lot of people listening will be really interested to see how you are engaging your stakeholders. So what steps have you taken to get them more involved?
Yeah, we've got a few different ways of doing that. So as I said, there's the ongoing business partnering, and that might require my team to be part of their regular team meetings, the business's regular team meetings. So that's quite an easy one, and maybe we'll always have a standing agenda item to go through the latest results or insight. But we also, on top of that, have a monthly forum. We call it the CX Club. And we will, in that session, mainly my team, talk about some recent work that they've done and just share that to quite a big audience that spreads across British Gas. And in fact, we do have other, business units represented there as well. So we might have energy colleagues there or colleagues from our chief customer office and so on. So we do get quite a wide audience, and it's probably like 90 to 100 people attend that. And we'll talk about a whole mix of things. Today, we'll be talking about a recent study we did with PwC on our market dynamics. So the sizing of our market within British Gas Services and what are the opportunities there. So we'll be talking about that today. But we also have guest speakers as well. So we've had speakers from the Institute of Customer Services talking about the latest customer satisfaction index results. And British Gas Services did quite well on the last one, so that was nice. That was a nice session. But we have talked about recent insights we've done on boiler installs and our recent research, well, rather a model that we've created in my team, which shows the impact on customer lifetime value based on NPS drivers. So loads of exciting things like that. We always record those sessions. They are open to everyone, but we always record them. And then we make that available on our Insight portal, which is another tool that we use. So we have a really robust Insight portal where it's everything that we've ever produced, essentially, unless it's, a bit sensitive, let's say, or confidential. We'll put on there, and we can always share it via links. And everybody in the organisation has access to that without needing a separate login. So they will always be able to access it. It just means we can send links instead of huge attachments, but we can also put videos on there. So we use that quite effectively to post videos of our customers talking to us. Now, we then create a monthly newsletter. And again, the newsletter will have the same things, but we'll also add on there a constant view of performance, NPS performance at different levels. We'll link in there access to our Insight portal. We'll show performance of our latest touch point and our latest NPS, all of that. So standard things, but then we'll add in really key insights, news stories, some customer videos, etc. Now, if you click into our Insight portal, you automatically get the newsletter. So it kind of is self-fulfilling. Everybody gets a piece of the insight. Everyone gets a piece of the pie. So we do really promote those channels. We encourage attendance at our CX Club. We ask people to engage with the Insight portal so that they will get our newsletter. When we've had a really good session with stakeholders, we'll point them to it from our Insight portal. They will then get our newsletter and so on. So we're always looking for ways to make that better. And our newsletter, we're always looking for ways to make it stand out more as well, and not just be another email that's lost amongst the others. We try to do fun stuff with that as well.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a great variety of different tools and techniques that you're using to engage your stakeholders. I know, I'm just building on that. I know one of the things that's been really pivotal for the Insight function at British Gas Services has been your customer panel. How influential has that been on your goals as a team?
Yeah, we were actually given a challenge, and the challenge was, how can we get some customer feedback really quickly? And we do use FlexMR, so Survey 2.0, to do ad hoc surveys all the time, and we do rely on that a great deal, where our Voice of the Customer program doesn't naturally answer those questions. But they wanted something more instant. How can we have an always on access to customers? So that is where we explored this opportunity with Flex. And we thought we'd start conservative with like around 1,000 customers. But it quickly became really apparent that we needed this, and we were starting to rely on it. And now, okay, if you're constantly asking the same 1,000 customers, you're not really getting diversity in that. So we have grown that over the years now. I think we are aiming for 6,000 customers this year. We're I think we're at about 4,000 or 5,000 so far. So it's been really important because there's always new offers, new marketing messages, new ideas being generated at British Gas. And as I said, it's across lots of different portfolios, lots of different areas. So we can do these really quick surveys with the panel and just get answers almost immediately. And we're finding that we get really good response rates. Yes, those customers are incentivized, but that is how it works. That's the nature of it. They're really giving us something valuable, so we should give back to those customers as well. So we've used it to great effect on a number of things, and one of the things that's actually been a really good use case for us is because we're FCA related, because we provide a level of insurance within services, we have to ensure that our comms are clear to customers, and we have to ensure that they take the right action off the back of it, that they understand the responsibilities. So we've used the panel to great effect there, where we just show them that piece of communication and ask for their views on whether it's clear or not, whether they understand this, do they understand the next steps, etc. And for that regulation, consumer duty regulation, they have like a regular drumbeat of that. So we can just use the panel, and we can always select a new group of customers each time, right, to give us that. But as I say, it's the offers and the campaigns. There's a constant need to quickly act, quickly get offers out there to grow for commercial growth. And how does that appeal to customers? They need a quick answer, because our launch date is 2-3 weeks away. We can turn it around pretty quick on the panel. It's also a nice way to engage customers and give back. Like I said, I think we do a few fun activities on there, a few engagement activities, just asking them about, what does your home look like at Christmas? What's really important? What do you love about British Gas? What could make you love us more? Which was our Valentine's themed engagement activity.
I think that's a really interesting point about having them engaged, because I know when I've spoke to a lot of teams when looking at setting up panels and stuff like that, where they don't think they're a fun enough brand to have an engaged panel or community, and I think that's really interesting, putting those ideas out there, like you said, to keep British Gas Services like not a fun brand, but getting them engaged when you wouldn't necessarily think they'd be as engaged as they are. Ultimately, I know that a lot of teams are on the same journey as you, or at least attempting to start on that journey. What have been some of the key learnings you've taken away from this, and maybe just sharing some of the mistakes that you've made as well?
I think one of our challenges is, although we've got lots of different opportunities, right, to engage, are we, getting that visibility at a leadership level, at a senior level? And I think that's one of the ongoing challenges. And maybe it's not a mistake we made, but it's definitely something we could improve on. How can we really get to the key players, if you like? But I definitely feel that one of the strengths is that business partnering I talked about. That single point of contact within our team for our key stakeholders, and also becoming almost like an extension of their team. And we do have the luxury of having a large team, and I know one of the the big challenges in our industry is quite small teams that potentially get cut back, and are not necessarily protected. And how do you spread yourself so thin? And yes, we still do that. There's a lot to cover, but being able to spread ourselves across different business units, different areas of the business, has been really, really helpful. And that is a massive strength. They can get quite intimately involved in what they're doing. They can align their objectives directly to that part of the business, and so on. We can really learn from that. The other thing is, a lot of the time we get challenged, I suppose, on how did you arrive at this? And another, reason we're fortunate to have a big team is we can have the analytics within our team. So we have the data, we have the data analysts, we have all of that in place, so we can, from literally the data upwards, take it to information, to knowledge, to wisdom, to power. But we can show a clear path as to how we've arrived at the right insights, how we've arrived at the right recommendations. So I think that we've also got, along the way as a team, we're constantly trying to make our work stand out amongst all of the other information that's out there. I think we do still rely on PowerPoint quite a lot. Obviously, we're trying to do the newsletter and use videos to greater effect, but ultimately, everything is still in PowerPoint. I think there's more we could do there, and I don't know what the answer is, but can we explore different ways of showing the information? And ultimately, is it clear? Like, do they know what the key takeaways are here? Do they know what the next actions are? That's something that, as an insight team, you might not always be able to arrive at the right action or the right recommendation. And that's where I think you do really need to work with the business to get to the right ones. So maybe that's another learning and part of the journey that we're still on.
And I think the important point to take from that is that it is a journey. Like, you often see people talking about where they're at as a team, they're at the end point or something, but it's just a constant journey that teams are on. There is never that end point because, like you said, there's always constant change. There's always going to be evolving tools and techniques that you can use to bring stakeholders in within your research. Like you mentioned, when PowerPoint came out, that became the crux of everything. It still is to an extent, but people are looking to move away from that, just get quicker, more bite-sized pieces of information, like I said, with the newsletter. I think it's an important thing to touch on just briefly there. Is that it is a journey, and that you've shared some really valuable tips for teams on how you can implement a bit more socialization with your insights and engage those stakeholders. I just want to finish the episode on this last thing, and it's just to ask you if there's anything you've learned from your journey within the industry that's helped you maybe be more successful, manage things better, that you'd like to impart on the audience that they may find valuable, maybe for those at the start of the career or just in a bit of a rut, or maybe, again, people on that journey where they're trying to implement something new at the business.
That's it's quite a hard one, I suppose. I'd say you'd need to establish what are the right measures for CX. I think that gives us all a good starting point. Obviously, I said for us it's MPS, and we do have quite a mature and extensive MPS program. And so I think that's a good sort of way in to say, here's this measure and this is what customers tell us. But I think one of the big successes we've had is also variety. Variety is the spice of life. We don't just rely on one form of getting CX. It's not just surveys. Yes, there's a lot of that, but we also spend time with customers. We have been out with engineers, out on the road with engineers to meet customers. We use partners, agencies to do, ad hoc research. We use the panel. We have, other capabilities across the team. So I do really think that you need a mix if it can be done. We've actually, in my team, again, we're fortunate. We've got X amount of budget. It's always under question and scrutiny, but we have tried to find really innovative ways to do things maybe more cost effectively as well. So that's something, because there's always that question of value. And I think just get out there, like offer to present your insight at a team meeting. Can I come to your team meeting? Would you like to come to our team meeting? do you know about this piece of research we've done? I think it's really going to be critical for these people. Set that time up, share it with them. Don't ask for permission. I think maybe we do that too often. And actually, at a recent forum I was at, it was like, how can you get to the stakeholders? Just ask. If they're really senior, they may even have a personal assistant, and they are so helpful. If you can, just get to that personal assistant, ask for some time, make it really clear what it's about, but get that time in the diary, then you can show your wares essentially. So there's a few tips there, probably not just one silver bullet, right? As a colleague once coined it, maybe a lot of silver pellets.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a really good point there, is just to start and get out there and do stuff. I think we all get really bogged down with sort of the analysis paralysis, and it has to be perfect. Like you said, just get out there, start something, whether it's that newsletter or something like that you can start off small and build up, because like we mentioned before, it is a journey. I think that's a great
note, if I may, Mike, sorry.
Yep.
I didn't
know it's okay.
Before, but I did call out CX Club as our monthly session, and we always have that session, but that's our brand, CX Club. So what we do is we call it our CX Club newsletter. We will put that logo on all of our slides. It's a small thing, but if you can start to establish a brand, and then everything you send is from that one team, even if it's not explicit, implicitly they know it's all coming from this same really valuable team that know a lot of good stuff, and you should listen to them. So that's also a good way to establish a brand, if you can.
Yeah, and that's another great point as well. Just establishing yourself as the sort of knowledge leader in that area. It gives you that sense of authority in that area as well. I think that's a great place to end today's episode. Kira, you've been a brilliant guest. Thank you so much for joining me today. And for those listening at home, I've been your host, Mike Connor, and I'll be back next month with another brilliant guest to discover how they're facing the challenges in our industry and bringing value into their organisations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.